This is the story of Salman the Persian, also known as Salman Al-Farsi, a companion of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the first Persian to embrace Islam. During the Battle of the Trench, he was the one who proposed digging a trench around Medina to defend against the Quraysh army. Salman was a seeker of truth, and his journey to Islam is best told in his own words. I was born in the town of Isfahan, in the village of Jayan, where my father was the Deccan chief. He was the wealthiest man in our village and owned the largest house. From my childhood, he loved me dearly, so much so that his affection turned into overprotection, fearing any harm might come to me. As a result, he kept me confined at home, much like how young girls were sheltered. I became deeply devoted to the Magian, Zoroastrian faith, and was entrusted with maintaining the sacred fire, ensuring it never extinguished day or night. My father also owned vast agricultural lands, which he personally oversaw. One day, preoccupied with his responsibilities, he said to me, "My son, I am too busy today to tend to the estate. Go and take care of it for me." On my way there, I passed by a Christian church and heard voices engaged in prayer. Having never been exposed to other religions due to my father's strict upbringing, I was intrigued and stepped inside. Their way of worship fascinated me, and I felt drawn to their faith. I thought to myself, "By God, this is better than ours," and stayed with them until sunset. Curious, I inquired about the origins of Christianity and was told it came from Ash-Sham, Greater Syria. That evening, when I returned home, my father questioned me about my day. I told him about my visit to the church and how I was captivated by their faith. Alarmed, he responded, "My son, there is no good in that religion. Your faith and the faith of your ancestors are superior." I disagreed, insisting that their religion was better. Fearing that I might abandon our beliefs, my father locked me in the house and shackled my feet. However, I managed to send a message to the Christians, asking them to inform me if any caravan was heading to Syria. Eventually, they contacted me about a departing group, and I seized the opportunity. I broke free from my chains, disguised myself, and fled with them to Syria. Upon arrival, I sought out the most esteemed figure in Christianity and was directed to a bishop. I approached him and said, "I wish to embrace Christianity, serve you, learn from you, and pray with you." He welcomed me into his service. However, I soon discovered his corruption. He collected donations from his followers under the guise of charity, but secretly hoarded the wealth for himself. When he died, the Christians gathered to bury him, but I exposed his deceit and showed them the hidden treasure. Outraged, they refused him a proper burial, crucified his body, and pelted it with stones. His successor, however, was a devout and righteous man who dedicated himself to worship and the afterlife. I grew deeply attached to him and remained in his company for a long time. After his passing, Salman continued his spiritual journey, seeking guidance from various Christian scholars in Mosul, Nisibis, and other places. The last of these mentors told him about the coming of a prophet in the land of the Arabs, an honest man who would accept gifts but never consume charity, sadaqah, for himself. Eager to meet this prophet, Salman set out for Arabia. A caravan from the Kalb tribe passed through Amuria, and I asked them to take me with them in exchange for my remaining wealth. They agreed, but upon reaching Wadi al-Qura, between Medina and Syria, they betrayed me and sold me into slavery to a Jew. Later, my owner sold me to his nephew from the Banu Qurayza tribe, who took me to Yathrib, Medina, a land of palm groves, just as my last Christian teacher had described. At that time, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was still in Makkah, calling people to Islam, but I knew nothing of him due to my enslavement. However, when he migrated to Medina, I was working at the top of a palm tree for my master. As I labored, my master sat beneath the tree, when suddenly his nephew arrived and said, "May God curse the Aus and Khazraj. They are gathering in Kuba to meet a man who has arrived from Makkah today, claiming to be a prophet." As soon as I heard these words, a wave of heat surged through me, and I began to shiver uncontrollably, fearing that I might fall from the tree onto my master. Hastily, I climbed down and turned to his nephew. "What did you just say? Repeat the news for me," I asked eagerly. My master, furious at my reaction, struck me violently and shouted, "What does this matter to you? Get back to work." That evening, I gathered some dates and went to meet the prophet, peace be upon him, who had just arrived. I approached him and said, "I have heard that you are a righteous man and that you have companions who are strangers in need of support. Here is some charity, sadaqah, from me. I believe you are more deserving of it than others." The prophet, peace be upon him, accepted the offering but did not eat from it himself. Instead, he instructed his companions to partake. Later, When he moved from Kuba to Medina, I collected more dates and went to him again. I noticed that you did not eat from the sadaqah I offered, I said. This time I bring you a gift instead. This time both he and his companions ate. The Prophet's integrity and honesty deeply moved me. These qualities convinced me of his truthfulness, leading me to accept Islam. Freedom and service, Salman, may Allah be pleased with him, was eventually freed from slavery by the Prophet, peace be upon him, who paid his Jewish owner an agreed-upon price and personally planted a specified number of date palms to secure his emancipation. After embracing Islam, when asked about his lineage, Salman would say, "I am Salman, the son of Islam, from the children of Adam." He went on to play a vital role in the early Muslim community. One of his most significant contributions came during the Battle of the Trench, Khandaq, where he introduced a military tactic unfamiliar to the Arabs, digging a defensive trench around Medina. When Abu Sufyan, leader of the Quraysh, saw the trench, he remarked, "This is a strategy the Arabs have never used before." A life of simplicity and wisdom, known as Salman the Good, he lived an ascetic and humble life despite his vast knowledge. He owned only a single cloak, which he wore during the day and used as bedding at night. He had no house of his own, choosing instead to rest under trees or against walls. Once a man offered to build him a house. Salman declined, but the man insisted, saying, "I know exactly the kind of house that would suit you. Describe it to me." Salman said, "I will build you a home where if you stand, your head will touch the ceiling, and if you lie down, your feet will reach the walls." Even when appointed as the governor of Al-Madain, Ctesiphon, Salman remained humble. Though he received a stipend of 5,000 dirhams, he gave it all away in charity, sadaqah, choosing instead to live off the labor of his own hands. When visitors saw him working in the palm groves, they questioned why he labored despite his position. "I prefer to eat from the work of my own hands," he replied. However, Salman was not extreme in his asceticism. On one occasion, he visited his close companion, Abu ad-Darda, and noticed that his wife appeared neglected. When he inquired about it, she replied, "Your brother has no interest in worldly matters." That evening, Abu ad-Darda invited Salman for a meal, but he refused to eat, saying, "I am fasting." Salman insisted, "I will not eat unless you eat as well." Later that night, Abu ad-Darda woke up for prayer, but Salman stopped him, saying, "Your Lord has a right over you. Your family has a right over you. Your body has a right over you. Give each their due." The next day, they visited the Prophet, peace be upon him, who affirmed Salman's advice. A scholar and a seeker of truth, Salman was widely respected for his wisdom and knowledge. Ali ibn Abi Talib, may Allah be pleased with him, described him as like Luqman the Wise, while Ka'b al-Ahbar said, "Salman is filled with knowledge and wisdom, an ocean that never runs dry." Having studied multiple religious traditions, Salman was well versed in Christianity and Zoroastrianism before embracing Islam. He was also the first to translate portions of the Quran into Persian during the Prophet's lifetime. Despite being born into an influential Persian household, which could have secured him a high-ranking position in the empire, Salman chose a different path. His relentless pursuit of truth led him to renounce wealth, endure hardships, and even suffer enslavement, all before finally finding Islam. According to the most reliable accounts, Salman passed away in 35 AH, during the caliphate of Uthman ibn Affan, may Allah be pleased with him, in Al-Madain, Ctesiphon. May Allah be pleased with Salman Al-Farsi and grant him the highest rewards. Ameen.